to episode 11 of the Alternative Future of the World. There is a lot of buffer zones or buffer countries, as you can see. This one, 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 this one. This one and this one. That should be all of them. We're gonna have some wars. Actually, it's basically World War IV currently in this timeline. World War III was basically a small skirmish in Europe. Not really a small skirmish. There was millions dead over here in Poland. So, that was World War III. I think it also included Turkey, maybe? But obviously in World War IV, Russia has been going after Romania mostly, and Poland. There's been some buffer zones, buffer countries included in there. Some stuff going on. Israel took a little bit at the beginning of the war, or maybe that was World War III. India and Pakistan agreed on a ceasefire and a buffer country so that they didn't nuke each other to death and cause the entirety of humanity to die, because they know they're on opposing teams. We have Bangladesh as a buffer country. Buffer countries are basically not allowed to be invaded because they're buffer countries. They're like an international zone. They're like the most neutral you can be. They are not allied to either side. They are causing protection. They are allowing protection for the Western Alliance from the CSTO, and from the CSTO allowing protection for the CSTO from the Western Alliance. So it's two ways. But we have a war going on here in Southeast Asia. So Vietnam decides to invade this part of Cambodia, and this sets off, it was already World War IV. So, they start invading Cambodia like this. Yeah, now this is Laos, basically. They start being invaded by Cambodia and Thailand. They start invading them, start getting this, and they start pushing through Vietnam, trying to cut them off. They don't get very far. They start cutting off this part of Vietnam and this part of Vietnam, and they start pushing in here, trying to cut off Vietnam from the southern part of itself. They succeed pretty well up here in the northern part, but Vietnam has its own allies in China that have already sent down troops into Myanmar and Vietnam. You can see China owns Vietnam here in this timeline. They are already pretty massive, and they have these islands too. So they are more than ready here. So they start pushing into Thailand. A lot more than that, though. Like this. They start pushing into Thailand. Just overtaking them, basically. Not like that, though. Like this. They start pushing into Thailand. They just basically take over quite a bit of them. And they cut off that portion of Thailand from the rest of Thailand. It basically capitulates. And Thailand is not liking this. But we have Vietnam and Laos pushing back ever so slowly. They cut this part of Vietnam and Cambodia off. Because, Thailand and Cambodia, they fused together. They joined in a unity. But they start pushing back, Thailand and Cambodia. They start pushing back like this into Myanmar. They start pushing back and they cut off. This isn't Myanmar anymore. This is China. They cut off one part of China from another part of China. Okay, I'm just gonna do something right here. I'm gonna do that because this is getting annoying. They cut off one part of China from another part of, I just colored that in, did I not? Oh no, I did not. That's another part. Okay, I know what to do here, and that is color in this with a single pixel. So they start pushing into whatchamacallit, China. And this part of China, I mean, they're separated from the rest of China, but I mean, it's quite a large region here. They don't necessarily surrender yet. They don't necessarily surrender yet. But they push into China, take over quite a bit. Take over quite a bit here. And basically, once they get to a certain point, this southern part of China surrenders. Right about here. So pretty far in. And capitulates. We'll see if that works. That does not work. I did not mean to do that. But you know what I'm going to do? Is fix all this crap. There we go. It basically takes over that part of China, and then they just keep invading. I mean, the, whatchamacallit, Vietnam starts invading in the south. Starts invading in the south, where around Ho Chi Minh City. They start invading in the south, but not like that, but more like that, except not like that, because, oh my goodness. So they start invading. They get along the coast here as well. They invade this island, and they start invading. Now Thailand is not happy about this, about losing this, or actually it's Cambodia, but you know, Thailand / Cambodia fusion is not happy about this, so they start pushing back themselves. They start pushing back themselves, and they start pushing back and pushing back and pushing and pushing and pushing in several different areas, but it's no match for these Chinese troops. It's just no match. They just start pushing in and pushing in and pushing. Now Thailand is not willing to surrender here. They are a pretty big U.S. ally and Western Alliance ally in this timeline. Now I'm not going to say that they necessarily are the biggest U.S. ally in real life, but in this timeline they're a pretty big ally. But they start getting invaded. And they're not willing to surrender. They would rather, actually at a certain point they surrender, but they're not willing to surrender just yet, because they have so much land in the south and in the north as well. Especially around this region, there's very populated cities. So they start to invade, and then right around here, Thailand, Cambodia, fusion, surrenders. Because they have basically lost so much land to China and Vietnam. So here's what the peace treaty looks like. It's basically Not looking good for Thailand. They get to keep their borders, but under a certain condition. Or, you know, most of their borders. They get a little bit back here. Or actually, that was never, I don't think that was ever part of Thailand. But whatever, they get some land there under a certain condition, and you probably know what that condition is. But not that condition. No, it's exactly the condition you think it is. Yes, I do not edit my videos. I know. I could probably edit this out, but and they get back this island as well. Actually, no. Vietnam decides to keep this island, but there's a specific condition, right, that Thailand has to meet to stay to become. So for them to keep these borders, they have to either become part of the CSTO or the buffer zone. And obviously, they don't want to be part of the CSTO, so they become part of the buffer zone. I know there's nothing in relation to them buffering anything. But they just become it anyway. Even though there's no really blue and red, there's no Western Alliance and CSTO buffer, but they, under part of the treaty, have to join one of them, so they join the buffer zone. So it's a buffer country now. All right, now that is not the end of World War IV. We have a Philippine invasion. Well, actually, before that, we have Peru doing some stuff. Finally, we have Peru invading Ecuador. Now, this does not go well for Peru. It does not go well for Peru. But they start invading Ecuador. Now, Ecuador saw this coming quite a bit. And so they start invading back. Especially up here. Colombia, Ecuador fusion just starts invading. But Peru pushes back up here, where they want to push back. Now, they didn't expect Brazil to be involved in this. They start pushing back a little bit, but they don't have many troops over here in the Amazon. I'm pretty sure that's the Amazon. So they push back a little bit, but that's about as much as they push back. And we have a little bit of pushback from Bolivia into Peru because they're not allies. A little bit of pushback, but Peru pushes back a little bit. Actually, quite a lot. But they're mostly focused up here on Ecuador. So they start pushing through like this. Start pushing through into Ecuador / Colombia. And they do pretty well at this. But not like that. What they do is this. Peru actually invades this island here. They start invading like this. They start invading. Now you have a little bit of pushback from Ecuador. They do not like this. They recapture this island. They recapture this. They recapture this. They recapture this. They recapture this island like this. And they push back a little bit. I mean, it's basically a stalemate at this point. Because Colombia, Ecuador start getting their forces back over here. And it's basically a stalemate at a certain point. Like this. What is this coloration here? It's a little bit of red there. But, get a bit of pushback here. Now, this is when a ceasefire is issued. So they want to stop fighting and just get the land that they got. So Peru gained quite a bit from this. They want to draw the borders roughly the same. Now, Brazil gets a little bit less here, but a little bit in the south here. But not like that. More like this. There we go. More like this. And this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and then more like this, where we fill this in with some buckets of red. So they didn't get very far. They gained a little bit up here in northern Bolivia. There's some democracy, or not democracy, diplomacy. I did not mean to do that. Or that. Okay, and then this is what the peace treaty looks like. Peru basically got almost nothing. Well, they got a little bit of land. But also a buffer zone is added. I probably should have thought of that. A buffer zone is added, but only between two regions. Only between two regions. This region, that is the wrong color. This region, okay, what we need to do is add, there are no buffer zones in North America, are they? Are there? There are not any. So let's add yellow here. But not like that, like this. Oh my gosh. That is not cool, man. That buffer zone, and then we also have another buffer zone here. In, whatchamacallit. And that includes, no, it does not include that island. Okay, now we color in this. What in the world is going on with these colors? Okay, we have another buffer zone. Now Brazil and Peru fought a little bit, but, you know, whatever. Brazil didn't get much from that. And plus, Peru would probably defend quite well here anyway, so there's no buffer zone added there. A few buffer countries added. Now, Argentina decides to join the Western Alliance. And Uruguay remains neutral for now. It was just Argentina that wanted to join. And the Falklands is part of Argentina in this future here. Now, that is basically the conclusion of World War IV. There's a lot of buffer countries added, all that stuff. Now, there is one more country that decides to join. An alliance, and that is Malaysia. Despite not liking Singapore, they decide to join the Western Alliance because they want protection. Now they're going to have to make up with Singapore, mostly. These two islands are part of the CSTO for some reason. We got some very fractured things going on. The buffer countries is a thing now. It used to be a thing, but now it's definitely a thing. Over there in eastern Estonia, there's quite a small and thin buffer country where probably not many people live, and it's barely visible when you zoom all the way out. But you can see that there are some large buffer countries like Nigeria and Bangladesh, Thailand, and Iraq are the biggest and most populous buffer countries. Alright, now we have the switching of one country from one alliance to another. That is, Eritrea switches to the Arab Union. They switch to the Arab Union as opposed to the Northern African Alliance. Even though they're in Africa, they would rather join with Saudi Arabia than like Sudan and Egypt, for example, because they see more benefits from it to join with Saudi Arabia. Now, the buffer countries, they are neutral usually. So, northern Syria, this middle Turkey, Iraq, Kuwait are neutral, as opposed to being aligned with a specific alliance. Alright, so this is that's about it for this episode of I guess this is episode 11. Let me just check. Yes, this is episode 11 of The Alternative Future of the World. This is where the World War IV has ended. Actually, no, it has not ended yet. Because I plan to do something with Israel and Egypt and probably Jordan. So yeah, World War IV has not ended yet. It's still ongoing. But that's it for this episode. Episode 11. Alright, and see ya.